I'm here in Orlando for the American Society of Hematology's 2025 meeting and exposition. ASH is one of the biggest and most influential healthcare conferences of the year. No matter how many conferences I've been to, it never ceases to amaze me how big these convention centers are. It's almost enough to cause an existential crisis. I'm merely a speck of dust floating among countless airplane hangar-sized exhibit halls and seemingly infinite booths handing out tote bags and stress balls. Tens of thousands of researchers, clinicians, biotech professionals, and more descend on whatever city ASH happens to be in any given year to learn what's up with blood. Bloodapalooza is where some of the most cutting-edge research and new therapies for diseases like leukemia, multiple myeloma, sickle cell, and lymphoma are announced. That's because the ASH meeting is more than just a healthcare conference. It also represents a fierce competition, a blood sport, if you will. Thousands of abstracts are submitted to ASH every year, and only the best and most promising research gets top billing. This year's most anticipated announcements include a new drug for chronic myeloid leukemia from Terns Pharmaceuticals, a new treatment for myelofibrosis from pharma company Incyte, and Fulcrum Therapeutics' new phase 2 data from a higher dose of its experimental pill for sickle cell disease. And Stat's here to cover it all. We're kicking off ASH with an event, Stat at ASH, standing on medicine's threshold. Stat reporter Damien Garde will chat with Yusri El-Sayed of Johnson & Johnson and Lori Greenbaum of Blood Cancer United about why investing in the science of blood is vital for the entire medical ecosystem. Then we'll get insights from Bethany Samuelson-Banow of the Cleveland Clinic and also the incoming editor-in-chief of ASH Clinical News. Bethany is here to discuss where hematology is headed, what its agenda should be, and why outcomes related to women are so poorly studied, with Stat moderator Catherine McPhail. And lastly, Stat's Adam Feuerstein is moderating a panel with Linnell B. Hodge of Bristol Myers Squibb and Cindy Peretti of Kite Pharma. They'll discuss the next frontiers in the fast-moving field of customized cell therapies. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to Stats Report. I'll be doing dispatches like this from other events in life sciences. Like just next month, I'll be at none other than the Super Bowl of Biotech, the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco. Stat will have a co-working space available to Stat subscribers. If you've ever been to JP Morgan, you know how valuable it can be to have a place to have quiet meetings or just decompress from the marathon that is JPM week. I hope to see you there. Okay, let's stand on medicine's threshold.
Hematology has been medicine's breakthrough foundry, that so many major discoveries and catalytic technologies trace their roots to the field. And Laura, maybe if I could start with you, why? Why do so many roads seem to lead back to the blood?
I think it starts with the basic biology. It starts with the fact that in the case of blood cancer, you have cells of the immune system that become malignant. And that creates just a very unique situation, challenging, but also an opportunity to really understand the immune system, how to leverage the immune system, and how to potentially be able to target particular targets in multiple ways, both in terms of targeting the cancer cells themselves, as well as targeting immune cells that can support the eradication of the cancer. I think beyond that, obviously, blood cancer, the accessibility of samples, the ability to understand and study cell types, the access is something that has greatly contributed. I think we've seen a lot of innovation start in blood cancer, thinking about even the earliest work starting in World War II and post-World War II, exploring chemotherapy, combination chemotherapies, transplant, of course. All these have greatly informed our understanding of the immune system and of oncology, and have allowed us a unique way to really gain knowledge and then transfer it to other areas.
Within multiple myeloma, the treatments that J&J has advanced have people using phrases like functional cure as being something on the horizon. How do you look at that? What is the time frame by which you might be able to responsibly say we are curing patients of this disease?
I think we try to be conservative about it, because multiple myeloma, like for many decades, was defined as incurable disease and not on treatment. I think there is a very large percentage of patients who currently probably are in functional cure with the drug we have right now. If you look at the drugs that have moved the needle in multiple myeloma, from antibodies like Darzalex, for example, or some of the bispecific or CAR-Ts, all these drugs have very significant improvement in progression-free survival. The bigger cure is going to come on when we figure out how these things are combined together or sequenced in a way, like different mechanism of action, you put them together, you have a much bigger program.
So to start us off, I wanted to ask about this very cool moment that you had a couple of years ago. You actually had a study that went viral on social media. You were testing the absorbency of menstrual products and found that the results of your test were inconsistent with how the products are being advertised, which could lead to the underdiagnosis of heavy menstrual bleeding. But what really stood out to people was that this study was the first known study to test the absorbency of menstrual products with real blood rather than a thinner liquid like water or saline. So first off, I'm hoping you could just take me back to that moment when you discovered that your study had garnered all of this attention and really what it was like to see everybody's reaction.
It was a really telling moment for me because, that was not something I expected to be like a crowning achievement. And it was almost a little bit of an afterthought because what we had intended to do and what we ultimately did was look into the use of, how many times you have to change like a menstrual cup or some of these newer products to determine if you have heavy periods or not, because all of the old metrics are based on pads and tampons. And then we said, well, but we don't know how much the pads and tampons hold. So I guess we'll do this study before we do the other study. And honestly, I was just thrilled that people were talking about periods. Like that's the win. Like the more we talk about it, the more knowledge there is and the less likely we are to miss these diagnoses. So I took it as a win.
People were mad. They were very unhappy to hear that it had been saline this whole time.
Last time you and I spoke was around the ACR meeting, the rheumatology meeting, where you guys presented some of your autoimmune. I mean, that seems like a big strategic focus for Bristol when it comes to cell therapy.
Yeah, that ACR was a mic drop moment for CAR-T, if I'm being honest. So we ourselves presented over 71 patients worth of data. And to say it was standing room in every session we were in, and the clamoring for rheumatologists to understand more about CAR-T would be an understatement. And the most moving moment was we had our myositis data there. And I've been to a lot of conferences in my over 25-year career, and I've sat and looked and been at poster sessions and seen doctors present poster. I've never seen one of the lines on the graphic walk up to that poster. It was one of our myositis patients. The physician who was the lead PI, it was not his patient. He did not know or expect that this patient would walk up. But she said, I wanted to see when this data was published and when it was in poster. And I wanted people, when they came to the poster, not just to see a line, but to see me. She's a journalist. She was so debilitated. She could not be a journalist anymore. She could not function. When I tell you, when she walked through this room, this beautiful young woman and vibrant again, I said to myself, I'm like, as many hard days as we've had in CAR-T, gosh, it is worth it. You just get one of those moments. And for us, we're super excited about this next frontier for CAR-T.
Okay, I'm back home at Status Report's world headquarters in Boston. I didn't stick around for the actual meeting. That's why the convention center was relatively quiet while I was pondering my very existence earlier. But Stat had a team of reporters covering all the biggest announcements at ASH. Stat's at all the biggest conferences in health and medicine, and we publish daily newsletters that aim to get you up to speed with all the news in just 30 seconds. In that spirit, here's a quick recap of all the bleeding-edge research announced at ASH. Sorry, Damien.
Getting behind and investing in things that, I was going to say the bleeding edge, which is a horrible pun. I won't insult anyone with at a hematology conference, but
on Saturday, a researcher presented remarkable preliminary study results showing Syndax's experimental drug, Revuforj, has strong efficacy for patients with newly diagnosed acute myeloid leukemia. The announcement didn't move the company's stock price much, though. At the time of recording this video, it's trading at roughly the same price as it was prior to ASH. On Sunday, there were big announcements from pharmaceutical companies Incyte and Fulcrum Therapeutics. Fulcrum announced that its experimental drug for sickle cell disease, which works by inducing an alternative form of the oxygen-carrying molecule hemoglobin, is more effective when given at a higher dose. The company's stock rose sharply on the news. Incyte announced preliminary data on its experimental drug for myelofibrosis. The company said it achieved meaningful spleen response rates and improvements in disease symptoms for patients with advanced myelofibrosis. The data apparently didn't blow the socks off investors, however. The stock is now trading about $96 a share, down from roughly $103 before the announcement. On Monday, Terns Pharmaceuticals announced that its targeted leukemia drug, called TERN-701, boosted high molecular response rates in advanced stage patients. Some investors believe Terns' drug could challenge Novartis' blockbuster leukemia treatment, Scemblix. Terns stock is up about 40% on the news at the time of recording this video. And lastly, on Tuesday, Johnson & Johnson announced a 2-drug regimen showed an unprecedented tumor progression benefit compared to the standard of care for patients with relapsed or refractory multiple myeloma. According to results from a phase 3 study, the two J&J drugs reduced the risk of tumor progression by 83% compared to standard multi-drug treatment. And that does it for ASH 2025. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It's a little click, but it actually helps us out a lot. And we'll be back next week. Same stat time, same stat channel.